We continue the chapter reading series from Alpha Goldberg's Pentagon 9/11. This is from uh, chapter 4, Operational Coordination. On the afternoon of September 11th, James Schwartz decided to institute a unified command team in the belief that he would benefit by incorporating in the decision-making process key representatives from the principal responding agencies with jurisdictional responsibilities. And, I've interviewed James Schwartz, and what they wanted to do was basically have federal, local, state agencies, EMS, FBI, FEMA, Arlington County Fire Department, the Pentagon Police, all to coordinate within each other. Now, there wouldn't be interagency fighting because James Schwartz is the incident commander. And then you have team units performing different tasks. So there was no like infighting. Everybody knew what to do with the task at hand, and they had all different roles for these agencies. Uh, Catering to their skill sets, right? Your search and rescue, evidence collecting, et cetera, right? So, and it all went to plan because James Schwartz and FBI agent Chris Combs from Washington, D.C., they began a relationship, uh, trying to manage a crisis and how would local and federal and state agencies interact? Because with the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, you had thousands of cops and firefighters, and everybody's walking all over each other. So that's not what they want to do here. The Pentagon investigation was very coordinated, very technical, very detailed, and they all worked together very well. Finding that some newly arriving agency representatives were not checking in at the command post or were unfamiliar with the incident command system, Schwartz also wanted to ensure that organizations operated within the system. He anticipated that more units from many local, state, and federal agencies and volunteer groups would arrive in the following days, some of them unsolicited. According to Schwartz, when I interviewed him, there was almost 15,000 people in the first 2 weeks there, and all volunteers from EMS, search and rescue, fire department. And what they did was Schwartz basically had to turn down so many of them that if you didn't get, you were given an ID tag that was at the Incident Command Center, the ICS, right? So Schwartz was in charge of that. And basically, if you didn't have an ID, you weren't allowed to work there. At a meeting in the Pentagon on the evening of September 11th, the agency representatives, more than 100, introduced themselves. After describing the ICS, Schwartz announced that he was appointing a unified command team, all the while emphasizing that his fire department had ultimate command and that he would remain the final decision maker. At the end of the meeting, MDW Commander General Jackson introduced himself as the Department of Defense representative appointed to make sure Schwartz got everything he needed. Later in the evening, Schwartz met with the unified command team, including FBI agent Combs, Jackson, Arlington Police Chief Edward Flynn, and 2 FEMA representatives. Over the next days, the team held meetings at regular intervals to keep each other informed about developments. The evening of the 11th, the FBI announced plans to set up a joint operations center, or the JOC, at the Fort Myer Community Center that all responding federal agencies could use to facilitate their assistance to local entities. That means the joint operations center only catered to federal agencies like the FBI and FEMA, right? Arlington was not allowed on there, neither was the Pentagon Police. The FBI also planned to run its criminal investigation for the JOC. Although uncertain that it would be as effective as Fort Myer, Schwartz agreed to the FBI's request to move his command post to the JOC, which came operational by early morning on the 12th. The inadequacy of the new setup became apparent on the morning of the 12th when the air traffic control tower at Reagan National informed fire officers at the Pentagon that an airplane was approaching the building. This transmission bypassed the incident command post at the JOC, which knew that the plane bore FEMA personnel. Arlington County Assistant Chief Sean Kelly, who replaced Schwartz at the JOC as an incident commander for the day shift on the 12th, and then regularly took over the night shift beginning of the 14th, had difficulty breaking through the radio chatter, but managed to inform the Pentagon firefighters that the plane was a friendly. Schwartz realized that the incident commander could not function effectively so far from the action, especially when his only view of the incident scene was too fuzzy television monitors. On the 13th, he moved the command post back to the Pentagon vicinity. Chief White served as Schwartz representative at the JOC. FBI agent Combs returned to work on the site with Schwartz. White believed this arrangement worked well for the most part, and that the two posts succeeded in making joint decisions as necessary. You could see the level of cooperation was fantastic at the Pentagon scene. Presenting a public face was an important element of the unification and coordination process. While functioning as senior advisor to Schwartz, Chief Ed Plower took on responsibility for managing public relations for the duration. As evening fell on September 11th, he realized that no arrangements had been made to provide the public with reports. Department of Defense press office, although active, focused on the broad picture rather than details. And to Plower's disappointment, the FBI had declined to set up a joint information center to fill that role. Americans urgently wanted news, particularly of the human toll, about which the media had only unofficial bits of information. To meet this end, Plower conducted a joint press conference with General Jackson at 11 p.m. Subsequently, Dick Bridges, the Arlington County deputy manager, assumed the spokesman role, although Plower continued to make appearances. Dealing with the press could have misleading outcomes, as Plower learned the day after the attack, when he conscientiously estimated a range of 100 to 800 casualties. The press melodramatically reported the higher number, and that's no surprise. The media loves to pump up the numbers because the media is a piece of shit. Among his other tasks, Plower greeted the vice president, members of Congress, and other high-ranking officials and dignitaries visiting the scene. He came away from the experience thoroughly convinced that the ICS should add a senior advisor akin to an executive incident commander to serve as a big-picture person. On the morning of the 12th, the incident commander began releasing firefighting crews from the District of Columbia and other nearby jurisdictions. Fresh units replaced them. There were no fatalities among firefighters and other responders. Finally, at 7 a.m. on September 21st, the Arlington County Fire Department turned over control of the site to the FBI, which continued its search for evidence and remains at the declared crime site. Thereafter, only a firefighting company, a technical rescue team, and paramedics remained on scene until control was turned back to the Department of Defense. After the fire was contained, late in the afternoon of September 12th, Captain David Lang of Fairfax County led a crew of firefighters and soldiers to the roof, where they draped a huge American flag over the side of the building just south of the impact point near Corridor 4. Flag was unfurled moments before President Bush arrived at the Pentagon to witness the tragic scene and thank emergency workers. The President and Secretary Donald Rumsfeld joined the gathering of fire and rescue workers and soldiers, shaking hands and offering words of encouragement. Secured on top of the roof, the flag waved gently in the breeze. For those present, the unveiling of the flag and the President's arrival helped lift morale after 2 days of unremitting toil and raw emotion. The picture of the huge flag flanked by firefighters and soldiers would become familiar to many, symbolizing not only the tragedy of September 11th, but also the prevailing spirit of endurance and hope. And that's the end of this chapter. And I believe we're going to have maybe 12 chapters left, or 13 chapters. So listen, thank you very much for tuning in. Have a good night, and see you in the next video. Have a good night, everybody.